Good morning and welcome to the lecture. Institutionalist model and neo-institutionalist model. So, as part of public policy models of public policy making, we are going to discuss about institutionalist model once again. But in the class, in the process approach, we already covered these two approaches. I am just going to elaborate about some more details about the institutional model, and the neo-institutionalist model is same as we discussed in the process approach. Institutionalist model is based on the premise that the government institutions have a direct and indirect impact on the policy process. Precisely, public policy is the outcome of the government institution. It is carried out and enforced by the government institutions. The institutionalist model focuses on the organization chart of government. Institutional model is basically focuses on the institutions. Just they sees public policy as an outcome of government institution. So, who is authorized to make policies? This is only government. So the government is just an institution. So policies are outcome of government institutions. It is carried out and enforced by the government institution. The institutionalist model is just so focused on the organizational chart of government, how the government is organized, how it's behave, how it's influence people, how the people is uh, socially controlled by the institutions in the making of policies. That is the concern of this institutionalist model. So, Carl J. Frederick, in his book Constitutional Government and Democracy, is a major work on institutionalist model. In a democratic society, a state is a web of government structures. The state performs many functions. It strives to adjudicate between conflicting social and economic interests. The positive state is regarded as the guardian of all sections of the community. It does not defend the predominance of any particular class or community. It tries to protect all economic interests by accommodating and reconciling them. So, in a democratic society, a state has elements like sovereignty, territory, population, government. So government has many components: legislature, executive, judiciary, bureaucracy, offices, political system, interest groups, political parties. So many institutions are there. It's a web of so many institutions. So it performs many functions. It tries to adjudicate between conflicting social and economic interests of different groups. So in the society, there will be pressures from different category of people, different social groups. So the positive state is regarded as the guardian of all sections of the community. But sometimes the state cannot defend the predominance of any particular community. The strongest community will have a strong impact in the decision-making system. So government cannot defend the predominance of any particular class or community. It tries to, as soon as possible, and government maximum tries to protect all economic interests by accommodating and reconciling the society, the social groups. So in the pluralistic society, the activities of individuals and groups are generally directed towards governmental institutions such as the legislature, executive, judiciary, bureaucracy, etc. Public policy is formulated, implemented, and enforced by governmental institutions. This gives public policy three different characteristics. They are: government institutions give public policy legitimacy. First one is legitimacy. Second one, universal. Third one, cohesion. First one, government institutions give public policy legitimacy. So the decisions or the laws, the regulations, rules which are coming from the state, from the government is legitimate. Legitimate decisions are taken by the government. So legitimacy is only available to the decisions taken by the government. So the legitimacy. So legitimacy simply means the legal obligations. Why the people obey the decisions, why the people obey the laws, because of its legitimacy. And another one is the application of public policy is universal. The laws, the rules, regulations which are taken by the government is applicable to everyone, every citizen. So it is universal. Only the government policies extend to all people in the society. And finally, coercion. Public policy involves coercion. That means the government can legitimately imprison the violators of the public policy. A decision or a law or a rule which is which is uh, taken by the government to the public, and when someone is going to or someone violate it, the government can, the monopoly of coercion, government can arrest him, government can imprison him, government can punish him, because government has the monopoly of coercion. So a policy conveys the idea of three capacity for imposing penalties. So when we consider the penalties, the character of penalties, it has three dimensions. Coercion is one side. Coercion of a kind usually reserved to the government itself. Only the government can legitimately, legally impose sanctions. They can ban someone who, if who violates, uh, violates the law. Government can make impose sanctions on violators of its policies. Since the government has the ability to command, they have the capacity to they have the right to command the obedience of all its people, to formulate policies governing the whole country and to monopolize coercion. The individuals and groups generally work for the enactment of their preferences into policies. In policy making, power is exercised by different individuals and groups, such as, so in the decision making system we can see cabinet ministers, prime ministers, MPs, bureaucrats, leaders of interest groups. Say all these category of people having power, they have the power, they have the people with power who are in the policy making process. So each exercise of power constitutes one of the influences which in totally go to make up the policy making process. This is to say that there is a process through which public policy is enacted. So the public policy is enacted from a process where the policy making, the decision makings are carried out by the powerful persons. The process generally comprises a sequence of related decisions made under the influence of powerful individuals and groups. So the powerful individuals within the group may have a impact on the decisions. Every decision is taken by the team. For example, in a group of a committee is comprised of 100 to 200 people, but the decisions are taken by only just a few people. The powerful persons are influencing the decisions. So that kind of a power is here also. The process generally comprises a sequence of related decisions made under the influence of powerful individuals and groups. And also the influence is coming from the outside of the institutions. That means from the public. As a social group, as a interest groups, the power is also, the pressure is also coming from the external sources. And or the institutional approach consider all these as institutions, as the only not only the structure, only the physical structure or the buildings of a parliament. Just what is institution is just a parliament. Parliament is not just a building, not a building, but when the parliament having the policy makers, the political parties, their leaders, their MPs, MLAs, MPs, cabinet ministers, prime minister, when their bureaucracy, their decisions, their interactions, all together, we can say that is institution. That is an institution. So the institutional approach focuses the all interactions, human beings and the physical structure uh, totally collectively coming to collectively considered as the institution. Okay. The institutional approach is also concerned with explaining how social groups and governmental institutions bring influence to bear on those entitled to take and implement legally binding decisions. Such decision makers include those who hold office within the formal and constitutional system of rules and regulations, which give formal authority and power to various positions within the governmental structures and institutions. The institutional approach attempts to study the relationship between public policy and government institutions. So the institutional approach is also concerned with explaining how social groups. So in society there is, we can say, a lot of social groups having different variety of interest. And when the social groups tries to influence the institutions, the government institution, they implement legally legitimated decisions under the influence of these social groups. Sometimes the institution will carry person who represent the social groups. So it is an easy process to make policies in favor of that particular community or a social group, which give formal authority and power to various positions within the governmental structures and institutions. So the institutional approach attempts to study the relationship between public policy and government institutions. Okay, it is clear.